Have you ever wanted a Crumbl cookie so bad but not wanted to leave your house? Well, I am going to show you 4 different recipes for amazing Crumbl Copycat cookies. Today, we're going to make hazelnut-filled churro cookies, a Copycat Oreo, an iced cinnamon oatmeal cookie, and a blueberry muffin cookie. They were all absolutely amazing and super simple to make from home. I have 4 kids, so naturally I chose 4 different recipes and let them each pick which one they would like to do. Olivia is the oldest, so she got to go first, and she chose a hazelnut-filled churro cookie. This recipe made 7 huge sharing size cookies, and the ingredients were 1 stick of butter, a half a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1.5 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 7 tablespoons of Nutella that we first put on parchment paper and then stuck in the freezer until they were solid. Once you get this mixture all together, you're going to roll these in a coating of 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. You make these cookies like you make every single cookie recipe. First, you put your room temperature softened butter into your mixer with your sugars, and you whip those until they are nice and light and fluffy, and then you add in the rest of your wet ingredients, so your eggs and your vanilla. Now, if you are a rule follower, you're going to add your dry ingredients into a separate bowl and mix those together before you add them into your mixing bowl with your wet ingredients. But I am not about to do more dishes if I don't have to, and so I always just add my dry ingredients straight into my mixing bowl, and I've never had any issues doing that. We were brainstorming what the easiest way would be to get these into 7 equal parts to make a cookie, and so we decided instead of getting out our scale, we were just going to dump this all out onto our baking sheet, get it all together, and then just eyeball it into 7 chunks the best that we could. The easiest way for me to be able to see that is to put it into a circle and then use just my dough blade and slice it into even portions. This dough was really easy to work with and rolled into a ball really easily without getting your hands messy and sticky. By the time you are seeing this video, I have already tasted these cookies, and these were my very favorite of the day. They tasted like a snickerdoodle, but they had just this really amazing texture to them. And then, of course, you can't go wrong with Nutella, so having the inside filled with that just added an extra layer of deliciousness. These cookies were an incredible sweet treat, and we will for sure be keeping this recipe and making them again. Once your dough is portioned out, we found the best thing to do was to just flatten that dough into our hands and then add the Nutella in and wrap the dough all the way around. That was the easiest way to get that Nutella in there. It took about 30 minutes to get that Nutella to a solid state into our freezer. And honestly, by the end of getting these stuffed, it was starting to get a little bit soft, so I probably could have went longer, but we were ready to get to baking. I think I tell you this every single time that I have a video with my kiddos helping me in the kitchen, which is really frequent because that's something that we do a lot. But I absolutely love having them in the kitchen with me. Olivia is about to turn 13. I cannot even believe that I'm getting ready to have a teenage daughter. And so anytime I can get her in the kitchen to spend some time with me, I absolutely will. Luckily for me, she loves to cook and pretty much comes anytime I invite her. We danced around each other getting these cookies all prepped and ready to go, and then they went into a 350-degree oven for 12 minutes. The recipe I used did clearly state to leave them on the cookie sheet for about 15 minutes once you took them out of the oven, so we made sure to do that as well. Ella is my second daughter, and she decided to make Oreo Copycat cookies. The first thing that we had to do to start this recipe was to separate the cream and the cookie from 20 Oreos. We made a really quick job of this. They separated actually really easily. And then we threw those Oreos into our food processor and created just an Oreo crumb. This recipe made 8 huge sharing size cookies, and the ingredients for these cookies were those 20 Oreos, a half a cup of soft butter, 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 3/4 cup of flour, and a half of a teaspoon of baking soda. That is the cookie recipe, but true to an Oreo, these have a cream frosting on top. It is 8 ounces of cream cheese, 1/4 cup of softened butter, all of that filling that you took out of those Oreos, a half a teaspoon of cake batter flavoring, 2 cups of powdered sugar, and then 3 more Oreos just to crumble on top for decoration. These cookies were my second favorite of the batch. They were really sweet and soft, but I definitely would not be able to eat more than like 1/4 of the cookie because they're really rich, but they were absolutely delicious, especially with a cup of coffee. I separated these cookies into 8 sections the exact same way I did all of the others. I just mushed that dough into a circle and then used my dough, I don't know what that's even called, a dough knife. It's not sharp, but anyways, I just used that to separate my dough and it worked really well. With these cookies, once you get them rolled into a ball, you do want to kind of flatten them just a little bit onto your cookie sheet. This just ensures that your cookie is the perfect size and shape when it comes out of the oven. These cookies baked at 350 degrees for 13 to 15 minutes, but 14 was perfect for us. Up next is my third daughter, Avery, and she is making some iced oatmeal Crumbl Copycat cookies. These were sweet and kind of spicy from the cinnamon and nutmeg and just really delicious. They would be the perfect like fall cookie with a cup of coffee and a warm blanket. The recipe for these said that they made 9, but just for ease of cutting them into equal portions, we decided to go with 8. The ingredients for these cookies were half a cup of room temperature soft butter, 1/3 of a cup brown sugar, 1/4 of a cup of white sugar, 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of vanilla, 1 1/4 cup of quick cooking oats. You saw us pulse our oats in our food processor in the beginning. That's because quick cooking oats isn't something that I keep in my house. I really just keep rolled oats. But the good thing about that is if you need quick cooking oats, all you have to do is just give them a few pulses to get them chopped up a little bit finer. You also need 1 cup of flour, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Like I said, these are iced oatmeal cookies, so our icing is just a traditional glaze. 1 cup of powdered sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of milk, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. If you guys are laughing at me lugging that giant bottle of vanilla around, I am pretty proud of that, and I need to decant it into smaller little vanilla bottles, but I haven't done so yet. That is my first homemade batch of vanilla, and although it's so simple and easy, it is time consuming, not in busyness with your hands, but just in having to sit. That bottle has been sitting for a year now with vanilla beans in it. It's just a bottle of vodka and you add the vanilla beans, let it sit for a year, and then it is ready to use. It smells absolutely amazing. And I did get a new batch of vanilla beans in just a couple weeks ago. I threw them in my freezer until I have time, but I am going to show you guys how to make vanilla and talk you through the process. It's super simple and super easy, but really elevates all of your baking. I kept my oven on this whole process because I was just constantly moving cookies in and out. And although we made 4 batches of cookies, I had all of this done in just a few hours. It was pretty quick and easy. The kitchen stayed fairly clean and we kept things moving and going. We did the exact same thing to get these cookies into their correct sizes. rolled them into balls, and then just placed them on their baking sheet. You may notice that my baking sheets are bigger than normal baking sheets. I'm not exactly sure what size they are. I should measure it so I can let you know. But I had a friend who purchased these for me from an Amish store, and I absolutely love them. I've been baking with them for years. I have 3 of them, and they are my go-to. These cookies went into the oven at 350 degrees for 12 minutes. Last but definitely not least, we finished off our Crumbl Copycat Cookie Bake session with Isaac and some blueberry muffin cookies. I have never made cookies that have fresh fruit in them, so I was a little bit curious how these would turn out. And I would definitely say that they're not exactly cookie texture. They are more of like a chewy muffin top, but either way, they were absolutely delicious. I feel like if you like a sweet breakfast, these would be a perfect kind of breakfast cookie, especially maybe if you added some oats in there. I do think these cookies are going to need to be eaten up quickly because of that fresh fruit, but that is not going to be an issue around this house. We shared some with friends, and we saved a few for ourselves. These cookies were my 3rd favorite out of the batch. These cookies had a crumbly, crispy streusel topping, so we started off by making that first. That was 3 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of white sugar, 1/3 of a cup of flour, and a pinch of cinnamon. I went a little heavy on that pinch, but that's okay because they were absolutely delicious. I do just want to make sure that you know that I will be including all of these recipes in the description box below. So although I am reading them out to you, do not feel like you have to write them down. You will be able to find them easily so you can remake them for your family. I was so proud of Isaac here. We have been working on cracking eggs, and he did an excellent job and got 0 shells in this batter. The ingredients for these cookies were 1/2 cup of butter softened at room temperature, 1/3 of a cup of white sugar, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1½ cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 a teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 cup of fresh blueberries, and 1½ tablespoons of blueberry jam. I do have some homemade blueberry lemon jam in my pantry in the basement, but I didn't want to open up a jar just for 1.5 tablespoons, so I went ahead and just used the blackberry jam that was already in my fridge. And I'm not sad about it. They were absolutely amazing. It's such a small amount of jam that I really don't think it matters what flavor you use here. Strawberry, blueberry, blackberry, any of those will work just fine. But it did just add a sweetness and a really pretty swirl of the jam throughout the cookie. I like to tease Isaac because my husband was not raised to cook or bake anything. He is pretty helpless in the kitchen. That's okay. He helps in tons of other areas. But I always give Isaac a hard time that he is going to have to be able to cook for his wife one day. So he's going to help me out in this kitchen and learn how to at least make some basic meals and just be a little bit handy in the kitchen. I'm going to be honest and tell you that I have never actually had a Crumbl cookie. Although I did actually get a Crumbl cookie gift card for Christmas this year in one of our White Elephant Christmases. The closest one to me is about 45 minutes away, so I am definitely going to be trying them out. If you've had them before, let me know in the comments which of them is your favorite. I know that they switch up their flavors a lot, and so they may not have the same cookies each time you go, but give me some direction on which cookie I should order. This dough, because of the jam and because of the fresh fruit, was a lot wetter than a traditional cookie dough, and it was pretty sticky and messy to work with. And these cookies did spread out a little bit more than the others. If I were to make these again, I probably will refrigerate them for a little while after I get them all mixed up and before I bake, just so maybe they hold their shape a little bit better. After we got them all rolled out and washed our hands, of course, we topped those with that streusel topping. This was such a nice addition to the cookie. That was something really different, but it added a ton of like nice texture and really good flavor. These cookies baked at 350 degrees for 14 minutes. Now that all of our cookies were either baked or in the oven, we took a break to have a quick lunch of just some leftovers, and then we got back to work. Ella made those Oreo cookies, and so we needed to get to work on her icing. I already had my mixer messy and dirty, so we just decided to throw all of the ingredients in there and just mix it up really quickly. That was a cream cheese icing, and it had so much flavor. It was really good. Next time that we make these, if we make them again, I'm probably going to leave out that cake batter flavor. It made my frosting super yellow, and I didn't love that. And I don't know that it added a ton of flavor to the cookies either, although it did smell really good. I didn't purchase that cake batter flavoring specifically for these cookies. I actually already had it in my pantry from a coffee creamer recipe that I made. And so if you don't have it, I would just leave that out. I didn't have any piping bags, so I just kind of DIY'd one with some parchment paper and a plastic bag. I just shaped that parchment into a cone and then put it inside the plastic bag. I have tried to just put my frosting inside a plastic bag before, but if it's a stiff frosting at all, when you're trying to pipe it out, typically that plastic bag breaks, and so this parchment paper added a lot of strength and worked perfectly well. This was the perfect amount of frosting to give these cookies a pretty heavy coat. And then somehow I forgot to record it, but we topped them with just some crumbled Oreos to make them look really pretty. My kitchen felt like a real life bakery this day with all of these cookies lining my island. The last thing that we had to do to finish up the day, besides our taste test of course, was to just mix up this glaze for Avery's iced oatmeal cookies. Making this glaze and getting it on the cookies somehow became the messiest job of the day. I swear there was glaze everywhere. But she had a lot of fun doing it, so I guess that is all that counts. I was trying my hardest to keep the bowl over the pan so she didn't have to swing that spoon around anywhere, but somehow she still managed to get it absolutely everywhere. We let this icing set and then moved on to the taste test.
We're going to start off with the hazelnut-filled churro cookie. Right. Good. Mm-hmm. What's its number?
10 out of 10. 9.
1. What's your number? All right, the next cookie we're going to taste is this Oreo Crumbl Copycat.
Copycat kitty.
And have a bite. Oh. Those are pretty good. You guys like those?
Mm-hmm.
What's your number?
8. 10.
10?
100.
Next up, we're going to taste these iced oatmeal cookies.
Me maybe go first.
Go for it.
9. How far is gone?
Our last cookie to try is going to be this blueberry oatmeal cookie. This one definitely feels more like a muffin than it does a cookie, though. I like these ones. 9.5.
This is 100 and 100 Google Plex 100.
It tastes kind of like a chewy muffin top.
If you made it to the end, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. And until I see you next time, may God bless.